Welcome to my American History Notes, where I read to you things that I've learned from American history that I hope that you'll be interested in studying on your own, that you'll look at some of the names and things I mentioned. And I draw some conclusions because I'm a Bible-believing Christian you might not agree with, but I hope that whether you agree with me or not, that you'll at least dig into these names and such, that we can study American history. So let's begin. FDR initiates the Federal Arts Project with government funding employing thousands of unemployed artists beginning in 1935. American Naive, that's folk painter Anna Marie Grandma Moses, was her first exhibition of work, does her first exhibition of work in 1938. Photographer Walker Evans has his first showing at the Museum of Modern Art. In the 1940s, black painter Jacob Lawrence begins to produce primitivistic and highly stylized representations of black ghetto life. Very interesting. You should look at those. Jacob Lawrence. Bizarre and mentally ill painter Jackson Pollock has his first solo exhibition in 1943. His type of, quote, art is called abstract expressionism, which is a nice way of saying, quote, he threw a can of paint at the canvas. After 1945, the center of the art world switches from Paris to New York, where abstract expressionism, we can't draw flies, is the dominant theme until well into the it was a sarcastic remark, until well into the 1960s when people start to realize it isn't very good art. Calling a canvas splattered with paint non-representational is a nice way of putting it. Jackson Pollock, Arshil Gorky, Hans Hofmann, Franz Klein, Willem de Kooning, Lee Krasner, Barnett Newman, Mark Rothko, and Adolf Gottlieb are referred to as the New York School. In the 1950s, John Chamberlain will do for sculpture what Jackson Pollock did for art by producing what is called junk sculpture. Real artists after this time are often referred to as mere illustrators, but some of the greatest real artists are Norman Rockwell and Frank Frazetta. In 1948, Andrew Wyeth will paint Christina's World. Pop art will become popular in the 1960s, and Andy Warhol will be one of the most famous practitioners whose works include rows of Campbell soup cans, which will be called profoundly meaningful. Post-painterly abstraction, which rejects the traditional, yikes, textured surfaces of abstract expressionism, sinks art into a deeper and deeper pit. Dan Flavin will use the fluorescent light tube as a medium for pieces he calls icons. Conceptual art becomes popular among those artists who couldn't draw a bath, and colorful people will accept that it is more important to recognize what you meant to paint rather than what you actually did. Try painting someone's house with that attitude. Now, in architecture, Frank Lloyd Wright designs the Kaufman House, called Falling Water in Bear Run, Pennsylvania, between 1936 and 1937. He will design the Guggenheim Museum in New York City between 1945 and 1958. Construction on the Pentagon in 1943, which at 6.5 million square feet will be the largest office building in the world. R. Buckminster Fuller will design Dymaxion House in 1946. In 1950, the United Nations building is complete in New York City. The Sears Tower, designed by Skidmore, Owings, and Merrill, opens in Chicago in 1973, the year I graduated from high school, as did the ill-fated World Trade Center. At this point, it becomes painful to point out that further degradation of American popular culture. The number of mainstream films that are pure pornography becomes absurd. It's not my intention in presenting this to create a curiosity to view or read any of the trash I just mentioned, but just to show that America has gone through a steady decline of values and value, singular, as the average person, particularly Christian person, leaves the Bible as their principal source of reading material and ventures out into the lost world where every degenerate and wicked thought is glorified and examined. Opinion, if you want a victorious Christian life with power over sin and a close walk with God, then spend your free time reading your Bible, not watching or listening to some pervert tell you that you don't need God or screaming how wonderful mankind is or how life really stinks. So now for this section, this entire series we've done, I want to throw some things out to you that you should possibly know. So what I'm going to do is we'll give you seven. So number one, Fanny Crosby was America's greatest and most prolific poet and songwriter with over 9,000 hymns, many of which are still sung every week by thousands of Americans. But name 3 secular poets who are considered greats who began their careers before 1935. Think about that. Here's another question for you. Who is considered to be America's greatest author, publishing such great works as The Sun Also Rises? Another one for you. Name the person most important in the development of modern dance before the Second World War. Here's number 4. Name 3 American composers and or performers of popular music. 5. Name 3 20th century authors. 6. Name 2 of America's most famous architects. And 7. Name 3 American artists. So we're going to continue with additional things about American history next, but we're going to stop there on that. We have special topics coming up, that additional special topics that you need to learn about, and we'll do that next time. And I hope you'll study this stuff, have questions, and learn about it. Thank you for being with me today, and we'll talk to you again soon.